AI is your best shot at bringing disparate worlds together. Like this whole excitement about AI, what changed, right? Because machine learning existed, deep learning existed for decades. This is not about solving yesterday's problems. It's about future-proofing where the industry is going, which is following the consumer. You have to normalize to common truths, right? Because these two things are very scarce. Time and people are the scarcest commodities on the planet. If the numbers aren't what people expect, then people get mad. Coincidentally, when the numbers are higher than they expect, we don't get any compliments.
And eventually Paramount will just buy all the media companies anyway, and then there'll be just one player. This week on Next in Media, I spoke with Karthik Rao. He's the CEO at Nielsen, about the company's very interesting, sometimes volatile year. We talked about how adopting big data has changed the company's capabilities and some of the growing pains along the way. Rao also caught me up on where things stand between Nielsen and its big media partners, many of whom like to challenge the researcher in public, as well as the company's plans to account for the exploding audience for creators. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next in Media. I'm Mike Shields. My guest this week is Karthik Rao. He is the CEO of Nielsen. Hey, Karthik. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Excited to talk to you. We talked a couple of years ago, and you were a CEO at Nielsen, but now you are the CEO of Nielsen, which is pretty impressive. Talk to me. Obviously, there has been a lot going on over the last couple of years, this huge transformation. You know, the Nielsen goes big data has been a big story. Give us like how is that gone? Where are things now? There's a lot of pieces there.
Yeah. So when I talked to you last, we were working on a very big transformation for the company. And the premise for that, Mike, was really around continuing to see this world of fragmentation taking place and really trying to future-proof our product suite for where all this fragmentation was going to go.
Right.
So the fragmentation was largely about, even then it existed, but largely this move towards streaming, from linear viewing. And then if you think about what happened after that was live streaming, which didn't materially exist until 2 years ago in the area of sports.
Yeah, now all the sports rights moving, all these, and more apps, it's becoming more and more of a complicated landscape.
And then you think about then what's happened. Then even in the last 2 years, you think about what's happening with the way creators are moving, right? They're also starting to move beyond where they once began their journeys. So we saw this movie and where it was going to go, and it was going to really amplify fragmentation and create more complexity. So what we really needed to do was revamp the product suite. Many of the products, and I'll go over that in a second, but at least on the core measurement side, we wanted a platform that could scale, right? And so one was the technology and methodology and AI that was required to be able to do that. And then the second was, where do we start deploying it, right? So the philosophy became everything at Nielsen needs to be big data plus panel, because we want, for the future where, capturing audiences are, we want the best of both those capabilities and the tech that underpins it all. So that was essentially the premise. And so we're very happy it got, launched, and many parts continue to be audited, some are accredited, but it gives us a platform to continue to move forward. So even in 2025, big data plus panel, as we call it, is sort of the currency of choice for this year's upfronts, if you will, 2025's upfronts. And it's a big shift because the world has operated for a long time purely on a panel-based capability, right? And so, we're talking decades. So it's a big shift. And so now the journey is, okay, now quickly we bolted on adding live sports to it, right? So now you get it in one integrated suite. And I'm still only on the measurement side of things. And this company does a lot more than that. But then you can imagine, so you move to live streaming. Next, it could be on demand. It could be every other way in which you and me spend our time today, but all in one integrated platform. That's the journey that we've sort of, beyond reasonable doubt, laid the foundation and also in the marketplace with it.
It feels like, you go from and I'm simplifying this, a company that was built around a panel of 50,000 people or whatever, to just like massive amounts of data from tons of sources. That's like a different company. That's like a very different product, right? What's involved in trying to transition that?
Yeah. There's the big shift there is, The hard parts obviously are internally. You got to move the culture of the company. You got to advance the tech of the company. You got to advance the use of AI in the company.
Yeah.
We bang out, about 100 terabytes of data a day, right? Like, and so to deal with this kind of scale, because everything we do, Mike,
It's not
is
just a bigger
literally,
spreadsheet. Like you got to like really be able to handle and process all this data in a very different way.
yeah. So that's one. And then you got to add, the methodologies, which are really important because like you need to have a common understanding and definition for, frankly, how to count eyeballs, and to align different methodologies because everyone views it differently. And we're sort of the center of the universe, if you will, or the ecosystem. So then bringing an industry to coalesce around how this works and how you then will scale it to other areas, right?
Right.
And so there's a culture dimension to it, which is all internal. There's a tech dimension, but there's also working with the marketplace and getting them on board for where this journey is going to go. This is not about solving yesterday's problems. It's about future proofing where the industry is going, which is following the consumer, and being ready and being able to do it in a way that still is coherent, scalable, comparable, all the good old values, if you will, and then ultimately trusted.
Right.
Right.
And
That's
well,
the
that's it.
biggest.
How do you do that where it's a historic tradition to yell at Nielsen about something, right? And then there's all kinds of pressure, all these upstarts coming. You probably feel like you got to do this overnight, but you got to get it right also.
Yeah, I mean, this is something you and me, even talked about a while back, which is, everyone typically wants change, but they want it at a pace that they can handle it, and everyone's pace is different,
Right.
right? And so, at the center of ultimately what defines this company is trust, Mike, and so it's a very difficult thing to balance when you have different sets of expectations. But that's what Nielsen does,
Yeah.
right? Is try to coalesce an industry around bringing advancements and change, but getting the timing right and the comfort level right. And the way you think about comfort level typically, and some of these can tend to be frustrating for us or for clients, but the things to get right are: one, can you give them enough historical context with the new engine so that they can start to get
Because it's
comfortable,
really
right?
hard to just throw a bazillion news numbers at somebody with no context, right? With no
With no
history.
context. Right. So can you create some level of historical context? A. B, which is something we're going to have to continually deal with, particularly in a world of AI,
Mhm.
is explainability, right? Can you explain it? And when you significantly like explode the volume of data going in, it's not that easy to explain all the changes that take place, right? And so we have to continuously wake up every day to instill trust by being able to explain it.
Right.
And then the third is, people love in this industry the concept of traceability. When you work in the world of a panel, everyone can deconstruct a metric down to a panelist. That's the benefit that it provided for
Right.
decades, right? Now suddenly when you talk about 75 million devices and 45 million homes and all this stuff, it's no one can do that, right? And so it raises the bar for us to help create this explainability, translatability, traceability concept, and how to bring those two things together. So look, like, we feel really proud about how far we have come in this journey and continue to bring an industry along. But the important thing here is it is future proofing what we need to do. Because today, now with what we have already done, the reason we're able to produce, football ratings on streaming is because the rubric scales. And now you can scale it to many more things and really get this understanding of where the audience is going back and forth and get to see that in a truly like comprehensive
Right.
way like never before.
Okay. So you go through this, huge journey. You get the reaccreditation. You're getting a lot of attention for the gauge, which is really eye opening for people. And then, like, what happened this past summer, the NFL, there was a little bit of a, there's always these like, someone takes something small and it blows up, and oh my god, this didn't work. What happened there, and how do you kind of explain where things are headed?
Yeah, sure. Like typically, to put it plainly, like three times, there are three contexts typically when, you know, Nielsen gets sort of, pulled out, in public, in the press or whatever. Number
Right.
one is around the numbers itself, right? If the numbers aren't what people expect, and they're mostly, if they're lower, then people get mad.
Yeah.
It's been historical for
Sure.
us. Coincidentally, when the numbers are higher than they expected, we
Nobody
don't get any
complains. Yeah.
compliments. But that's life. We
Right.
got that. The second is, around how we manage our roadmap. So if you go to every client and say, hey, we're going to bring these new improvements to what we're doing. We're going to bring in some AI here.
Mhm.
We're going to work on the panel here. We're going to work on a new approach for co-viewing, which is trying to estimate how many people are across from a big screen,
Right.
which is very unique to Nielsen, because we have panels that provide us those inputs. There can be a range of improvements we want to bring. And then the challenge is, if you go and talk to 50 clients, many a time you'll get a lot of common things, and sometimes you'll get totally
Very unique things.
We don't care about that. We care about this. So as you saw in the article, that's probably the one area. And the good news is now we're on a joint roadmap again. And for them it was co-viewing.
Okay.
And what improvements.
So
and
was it
enhancements
like a disagreement of methodology, or was it a problem? Is it just something that's growing pains?
No, it was about, frankly, it was about when we are going to bring it.
Okay.
That was
Timing.
more like it. When are we going to? So it's literally a roadmap item.
Yeah.
When are you guys going to do this, and how fast can you do it? And so we've been talking about that back and forth, and we obviously want to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're not compromising on other things we're trying to do. So anyway, so the good news is we found a way now, and to call it out, right after the NFL and others went on and talked great things about all the innovations we're bringing to the marketplace. And
reaching the right audience on streaming TV takes more than guesswork. It takes intelligence, and Sabio delivers. Sabio is redefining what it means to be a modern media company, where data, technology, and creator-driven content work together to deliver real results at scale. At its core is App Science, the only company building audience segments for mobile and CTV behavioral data, reaching over 70% of the US streaming households. How do you activate Sabio? Sabio is platform agnostic, meaning you can run campaigns through your preferred DSP or tap into Sabio's proprietary platform. With its owned and operated creator television network, Sabio unites media, data, and culture, giving brands a direct line to engaged, authentic audiences. Sabio's full-stack approach from ad serving to audience insights to creator content brings every piece of the media puzzle together. So campaigns don't just perform better, they connect deeper. Reach modern audiences with Sabio, the media company built for how people stream, watch, and connect. Learn more at sabioctv.com. That's SABIOCTV.com. Well, all right, why does this always happen? This is funny to me. The last, especially a couple of years ago, it was like everyone's coming for Nielsen. They're going to get replaced by someone new. Oh, all these new currencies are coming along. And then, so-and-so will have a deal with a competitor. And then all of a sudden they re-up with you guys. And there's a huge multi-year Nielsen deal. Are those things all negotiating in the press? Why do we see that?
Yeah. So I didn't get to the third one.
Oh, sorry. Finish the third one first.
Yeah. Number one is about the numbers itself, right?
Yep.
And the second is around agreement and alignment on roadmap.
Yep.
Are we working on everybody's most important thing, which we should be doing?
Of course.
It's about do it all at the same time, and we do it in a coherent way. And the third is, yes, exactly what you called out, which is, we work in the media industry. I mean, you're seeing even what's playing out right now. People are negotiating carriage deals, and the press is a way to do that. It's not my favorite part of negotiating, contracts and renewals.
Right.
But I will call out, since the one we had earlier in the year, since then we've not had we re-upped with Warner, as you know, and that went without any. any drama.
Nobody has dropped you, and all the new guys are using you. Which seems to be a pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, we'll take it. Look, we got to keep executing, keep improving.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Mike. People immediately associate Nielsen with, within quotes, the ratings.
Yeah.
Right. If you take a step back and look at the breadth of what we do as a company, right? Ratings are important. It's one of the things we do, but we enable discovery experiences with the Grace Note metadata. and that has its own AI journey, and it's a really amazing, thing. Then we help with all kinds of planning. Like our planning tools are like embedded in all the agencies.
Yeah.
Um,
People don't think about that.
yeah, the planning tool. So you may have heard of capabilities like Scarborough or Nielsen Media Impact. There's an entire like very important part of the process. Like you don't get to anything without
Yeah.
a real thoughtful planning exercise for buyers and sellers, right? Then you get into obviously the role of activation. So we have a marketing cloud.
Yep.
We have other like capabilities there that enable really using data to really play a big role in the ad tech ecosystem. For impressions to be reached, right? We play a role there. Then you get into measurement. Then you get into like outcomes. So the outcomes marketplace. So there's a whole range of things that the company does, and I think that for us, is that breadth of portfolio and how interconnected it is. And, each of these have strengths in streaming now, each of these have strengths in broadcast and cable. And, each of these have strengths in
Yeah.
audio. So all these things sort of compound to why when you go back into in your new renewal, it's not just about like
Who's
the
counting my
rating.
shows? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that become sort of an enterprise
Right.
use case, if you will. That's the way I would characterize it. That's the power of the platform, is that like it's an enterprise use case.
Yeah.
Even though everyone just thinks it's about the ratings.
Right. Who's going to numbers am I using? Given that that you're less understood but really integral role with planning activation, how do you think about on the pure digital side of things, like AI buying has really taken off with platforms like Google and Pinterest? Hasn't really
Yep.
happened in TV yet, but you got to wonder if it's coming. Do you think about that and what role you might play there if there's an automated?
Yeah, I think it's really important, because AI is the one thing that is your best shot at bringing disparate worlds together.
Right.
At the most basic level, right? Like this whole excitement about AI, what changed, right? Because machine learning existed,
Mhm.
deep learning existed, for decades. I mean, we used all those things, right? Like content recognition existed. So what changed? What fundamentally changed was two things. Number one, the ability for models to take structured and unstructured data, this is the groundbreaking thing, right?
Okay.
Like you can take conversations and numbers and suddenly like the magic is totally different. And then the ability for it to self-learn as you keep pumping more data into it. So that makes me particularly optimistic because it tells you that if you can bring a structured and unstructured world together, then you can also think of how that applies to many other contexts, like linear TV buying versus digital TV buying.
All these
right?
things that are hard to mesh right now should theoretically be more meshable.
100%.
Yeah.
That is 100%. It's actually well said. Like, because that's been historically the problem, because workflows are different, right? And nobody wants to rewrite platforms, rewrite software. It's like spending money on yesterday's problem,
Yeah,
right? But with AI, you could basically stitch those two things together as long as you have the right data to power it.
Right.
That's our thesis. And that's what we talk to clients about, is you can actually bring disparate worlds together in workflows that you couldn't before, but you need to be using the right data to power the actual agents or the
Right.
LLM to be able to do those tasks. I'm very encouraged because look, like there's also, a data-driven linear has existed, which is basically trying to create advanced audiences has existed,
Yeah.
which is effectively trying to take, the linear world and make it much more addressable.
Yeah.
If you think about it that way. So there's enough of a stack, if you will, in the ecosystem to do that. And the digital always grew up with that stack, right? And so now with AI, can these two things actually talk to each other? So any company that owns linear assets, plus streaming assets or anything that's digital, there's a new journey here, which is going to unlock a lot of value.
Yeah.
And we want to definitely be part of that.
That's that could be game changing if the future that we think is coming comes to fruition. I want to ask you about a big story has been in the gauge, the YouTube numbers have kind of blown people away the last couple of years. And now, of course, there's so much more excitement about creators. I guess that's a two-part question. Talk to me about what you've seen on this YouTube growth? Has it been hard to actually get people to accept how big that is on television? And then what do you guys want to do with creators and try and help brands figure out where to put them and media mix and things like that?
No, it's a great question, right? I think yes, a lot of folks struggle with looking at the YouTube numbers because it's been this sort of like constant, from 9% to 10%
Yeah,
to 11% to
right.
12%. Like it's sort of this
This
thing
can't be
that
real,
keeps
is it? And
happening.
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's changed is a couple of things, right? And I'll just talk about perceptions that people have had for a long time. The two biggest ones are, number one, YouTube is really just a mobile thing, right?
Right.
That used to be historically it. Second, YouTube really is about short form stuff, right?
Right.
Um, and then the third is YouTube is just really about, democratizing content creation, right? And all those things turned out to be untrue.
Yeah.
A big chunk of YouTube viewing is on a big screen, including with multiple people like across the screen. It's not just like the way we all, started using YouTube, which is on our mobile
Yep.
devices, which was just me. Now it's multiple people. The content is much more long form. They have a huge amount of, and this is pretty evident, right? You know when a platform has a lot of long form viewing when the ad loads go up.
Yeah.
And if you notice on YouTube, the ad loads have gone up,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It looks
That's
a lot
longer
more like
sessions, like, TV like kind of viewing.
exactly. So I think people, now are fully finally understanding the power of the platform is that it is big screen, it is longer form, it works really well and scales to that. And ultimately, the content itself, if you just look at how the proliferation happened with creators, millions of them, it's highly produced
Yeah.
content, right? And it may or may not be all the things that you or me are interested in,
Yeah.
but there's enough people that are very interested in like cooking or which hotels are we staying in. Like it's very well produced. And so what we're hearing from creators directly, and we're spending a lot of time on this now, is hey, we kind of grew up in this world like a startup, but now we're getting industrial
They're
strength. And
professionalizing. Yeah.
yeah, and we're not totally sure, like we know how to be relevant to the broader media
Right.
ecosystem, which has a workflow question, it has a data question, it has an economics question. And if you don't answer all these three questions, then it becomes difficult for them to travel between platforms,
Yeah.
to travel outside of their content that they grew up creating because they want to create new types of content. So all of their travel directions strategically, it comes down to workflows, data, standardization, right?
Yep.
And so those are the conversations we're having, and very, very excited with, all the stuff we're working on. I'd say much to come in 2026 around that.
Coming back to the original conversation, the stuff that you always get known for, how do you sum up, like, where are we in the currency wars, if they still exist, and what's going on with the whole JIC initiative that got a lot of noise and now I don't hear about it?
Look, um, currencies are on the eye of the beholder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that most people don't recognize is historically, the decision about a transaction between a buyer and seller has not just been on Nielsen data. There have been other things used before. It's always existed.
Sure.
Like, for instance, a buyer and seller might negotiate that they want, the KPI to be footfall, right?
Right.
You have to have driven that much footfall, and that's the basis of the transaction. So outcomes is one, and people have different kind of
Mm-hmm.
outcome, or it should be brand affinity metrics on top of reach, right? So they've always existed. So for me, it was like you should use whatever you want to use as long as it all tells you two things at the bare minimum. Number one, it should not say that there's more than 24 hours a day,
Right.
right? That would not be a good thing. Number two, if it's about the US, it should not say that there's 450 million people in America. It should, if things don't normalize to the true truths about humanity in any given
Yeah.
country, um, then you're sort of misleading yourselves. And that's going to create value erosion and destruction anyway, right? You can criticize Nielsen for whether a number should be higher or lower or whatnot.
Yep.
But if everyone gets used to, well, there's 450 Americans and like 28 hours a day, like that's
Something's
just not
wrong
right.
there. Yeah.
So multiple currencies or whatever alternate currencies, these truths should always be the same. You have to normalize to common truths, right? Because these two things are very scarce. Time and people are the scarcest commodities on the planet. And with regard to the JIC, look, I think they've also, what is it now, 2 years since it got launched, I
Sounds
think?
like it.
Maybe.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
A lot of
maybe
those original members are not even there anymore, which is kind of tricky.
Yeah, I think the journey, and I don't spend a lot of time on this in full disclosure,
Yeah.
but I think the last things that I remember was trying to create standardization for how to produce streaming data.
Yeah.
At for use for everyone to use.
Yeah.
And that's great. That may be solving a problem for folks who don't know how to work with streaming data. Like we're integrated into all the streamers,
Right.
basically all of them. So that requires being aligned on privacy, being aligned on, the tech and the clean room integrations, being aligned on how much data should actually go back and forth, because each company has their own, views on privacy. If you're in California, you have a very different view than maybe in some other states, right? So we've accomplished all this, and we're turnkey. We work with basically every single one of them. So I'm not sure for us it helps a lot more. But I get it. If there's other folks that want to do something with streaming data,
right.
Yeah, it could help.
I mean, eventually Paramount will just buy all the media companies anyway, and then there'll be just one player. Last thing I want to ask you about is the podcasting. You've that's obviously been a red hot medium. It's imperfect in the way that it's hard to track people when they listen on other devices and stuff. But now there's way more viewership of podcasting on YouTube and TV. What are you guys doing there? And then how is my podcast doing?
Yeah. So we are literally going to build a system to measure you, Mike.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is because, look, we've gotten started. I think you know that. And it's mostly in the planning context, because at least we have to start somewhere, right? But I feel like this is an area where there's a few questions we need to answer. I don't believe it's a data problem. We have capabilities to do it. I think where we're going to need to take a leadership position in helping the industry is, how do you think about video versus audio, right? Because like the conversation you and me just had at the top of the hour, is that if it wasn't a screen, if we weren't on screen, is that an audio podcast?
Yeah.
And just because we're on screen, is that a video podcast?
And it's different behaviors, different budgets or structures, all kinds of things.
Exactly. So to me, I think that's the area where it's whatever we build has to scale to the different business models. Yep. And I think that's where we're going to be investing time, because I think it's a very unique medium, right? Because the format,
it's not simple.
This one's, and it's simple if everyone can align, but that's where, Nielsen typically has to do his thing with how do we get enough critical mass so we can agree that there are times when podcasting is an audio only format, even though it is, on a screen. And there are times when it's a video format, depending on what it is. Yep. And how do we get to some level of alignment around it to help the industry make progress? Because there's a lot of podcasting, and there should be, the economics of podcasting at large should continue to improve. And this is where we can help play a role in that.
It's simple if we all just align. That's you just kind of summed up the entire industry there. Good luck with that. Karthik, awesome conversation. Let's do this again. Thanks so much for your time here.
No, my pleasure. Thanks again, Mike. It's great catching up.
A big thanks to my guest this week, Nielsen's Karthik Rao, and my partners at Elemental TV and Sabio. If you like this week's episode, please take a moment to rate and leave a review. We have lots more to bring you, so please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time for more What's Next in Media. Thanks for listening.